All right. Let everybody get in here. Anybody who's going to get in here, get in here. Hopefully, everybody's doing good today. I have to do my posting. There's so much more that goes into this than just going live, guys. It's tiresome. I swear it's tiresome. Getting an echo, huh? Let's see. Is it still happening? Oh, let me know if you guys can hear me all right. Okay. All right. Cool. What's going on, everybody? Hopefully everybody's doing good. Just got to retweet this real fast. All right. Hopefully everybody's doing good today. Wanted to hop on here for a little bit of a later episode. Get some of my, get an episode for some of the people who get off work a little bit later. The U.S. bros. If you're watching in other places around the world, welcome. I hope everybody is having a fantastic Tuesday. Oh my gosh, it's Tuesday already. Week is moving fast. If you guys want to find my work anywhere else, you can go follow me on Telegram and Twitter. And remember, guys, if you have questions that you want answered during the live stream, you can always donate with super thanks or super chats or whatever. Those are the best way to get a question across to me while I'm in the middle of my stuff, because I can look over and it'll pop up and I'll see it. If you guys ask questions, I will answer them from time to time in the chat. But other than that, let's get into it. We got some stuff to talk about today. Obviously, if you looked at the title, you can tell it's Afghanistan 2.0. I do believe that is what Ukraine is starting to become for the United States. Obviously, contextually different. We don't have troops there. It isn't our war necessarily. However, it is going to finish with the same results and have the same negative consequences on the administration who started it and failed to finish it properly. That's what happened in Afghanistan. I mean, obviously, Biden didn't start it, but he did. He was the president who was left holding the bag when they decided to back out and the Taliban took back over. And it was quite embarrassing. Some American soldiers lost their lives. A lot of stuff that just didn't need to happen. And I think Ukraine is going to wind up the same way. You can see that we are now entering into this stage of collapse. Afghanistan didn't collapse in one day, right? When the U.S. troops pulled out, it took a couple months for things to start to get rolling, and then it happened really fast when everybody started paying attention to how much the Taliban was taking back over. The same thing's going to happen in Ukraine. The Russians have entered into the Kharkov region. There has been this shock from the Ukrainians, it seems. They thought that their northern fortifications were going to be strong and be able to hold back the Russians, which is a weird thing to think when, I mean, maybe they were just projecting that idea out to keep morale up and stuff. But if you're losing your much more sophisticated and well-planned fortifications in the east with available manpower, how do you think you're going to hold your fortifications in the north with a lack of manpower? It just doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Especially because the Russians now are using guided artillery shells for trench clearing, basically, up in the north. And I mean, just the fact that, a year ago, a guided artillery shell was rarely used, and when it was used on a high-value target like a tank or something that needed to be hit in a timely manner with great accuracy. Now the Russians are just kind of lobbing these at fortifications, just taking out each individual infantry position in the fortification, in the trench network, and then moving in and assaulting. So the fortifications aren't holding up. And the situation's going to progress where I believe that we are already in the collapse the collapse is just not what everybody is going to call the collapse. When the collapse happens, everybody's going to be like, "Oh, the collapse is happening," but really, there's a much larger buildup to that collapse, and I believe that we are in that phase now. Blinkin arrived in Kiev on an emergency visit from Washington, I suppose. I don't know where he was when he flew in, but this was kind of an unscheduled arrival. He came in and basically there are rumors about what he talked about with the president. I do believe that he wants to make some changes to Zelensky's administration, his government, and some military changes as well. That's the rumors, guys. I have no confirmation on that. That's not something that I'm gonna set in stone. But there is a very specific reason he came and visited. He didn't bring any good news. He didn't bring any aid packages. However, what he did do, and I'll bring this up real fast. He did probably the most American thing you can do when you go to a foreign country, and I will show that right now. All right, here we go. So Blinken goes to Kiev, and by the way, d- don't don't go asking me why there is a nightclub full of men open in Kiev when there is a war going on. Excuse me, are any of these men in this band Ukrainian? Because we really don't need guitarists right now. We need infantry. So why this is the problem that I have. I have an extreme problem. Uh, this is how every war has always been, but certain areas are picked clean of the men because they're less desirable, and then you have areas like Kiev where there's these men who are just soft that will never be conscripted or mobilized because they have connections or they're deemed more valuable to the state. Yeah, that's upsetting. But anyway, Blinken goes to Kiev, tells them what they need to do. If that's we'll figure out in the coming days what exactly happened. But then he goes to a nightclub and plays "Song of Freedom." I mean, what do you even say? This is supposed to be an official trip to a country that just had a new front opened up on it. The Russians just invaded another part of Ukraine, who you're talking about defending till the end. Why the hell are you in a nightclub playing guitar, singing about freedom? What is this? This is like the final days of Rome type shit, dude. This is crazy. This is nonsense. What is this? Is this the guy who's supposed to be dictating our foreign policy? Like what am I looking at here? Whatever. I mean, go. It seems so disrespectful to me. That's how it feels to me. You're failing Ukraine right now. You're obviously failing Ukraine, and that you go to their country. If you believe that rumor, you tell them what to do. And I mean, I don't know why else he would be there. There's no other reason he's there unless he's delivering some news or he's requesting something or he's bringing a message, right? Those are the only reasons he's there. So it's something dramatic. He flew in. He flew into Poland and then came into the country, and then he goes and he's putting on a show, a performance. That's so weird to me. That's so weird to me. I don't understand what that is all about. We got a super chat here. Where's my dragon teeth? Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, the northern fortifications didn't line up the way the Ukrainians wanted them to. But yeah, I just this is the shining perfect example of how the U.S. is conducting its foreign policy. It's like it's disrespectful. It's not. It doesn't have any class. It doesn't carry itself properly, and then it does this cringy shit. And is this supposed to be? What is this supposed to do? Is it? I feel like this is him just going and playing guitar and having a good time. Which, hey, dude, read the room. Like, what the hell? What are you doing? Yeah, exactly. Dude thinks he's Sting. Yeah, this is the goofiest shit I've ever seen, and it's honestly kind of disgraceful. I mean, if he went and did this somewhere in the U.S., who cares? That's fine, whatever. It's not because he's going and playing guitar. It's because he's there on official business, and then at night in a country that is at war, where they're talking about it being the basically the existential issue for Europe over the next 20 years if Russia wins in Ukraine, and then he's going to go and play some some jazz tunes. Like what I can't I can't with that. This is the problem I have with the United States. This is why I come on here and I do this is this right here. It's just embarrassing. Okay. Sorry, I was a little salty about that. This pisses me off like nobody else. Like nobody else's business. All right. Let's go to the map and I will show you guys some map updates. Okay. So, the map has been updated now. You can see there's a lot less green. That last week of progress has been fully filled in to red. So now we will look at the new updates that have happened within the last 24 hours since the last live stream. All right. So on the Avdiivka or Chitny sector, the Russians have filled in these two fields right here in between Umanske and Natalove towards Yasnobrodivka. All right. Good God. Again, the goal here is obviously just to push the Ukrainians out of this area behind the reservoir, set up a defensive line along this reservoir, and then begin progressing north. So watch for this area to get filled in. So kill these areas. A defensive line will likely be established along this valley right here, along this reservoir and along this river. And then once that's met, not to say that the Russians won't continue going past it, but it's securing the flank for this entire northern operation so that the Russians cannot get this area pushed in if the Ukrainians were ever able to reconstitute to the position where they're able to do that. I don't believe they will be able to do that, but you fight a war as if your enemy is going to be 2 times stronger tomorrow, right? You always plan as if your adversary will do something unexpected, and you make stopgaps for that in case it happens. So, establishing the flank and then just continue working towards Pokrovsk. And you never know at what point and where a breakthrough will happen. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But a breakthrough could happen anywhere, somewhere where there hasn't been movement. You could see a breakthrough in Ugledar, right? And it just gets in behind the defenses, and the Ukrainians aren't able to respond. And then, just like this is going to be goofy, but there's a breakthrough at Ugledar. It doesn't seem like anything, but if the Ukrainians can't respond, you lose a chunk of land like that in a very short period of time, right? And that's huge for this conflict. So you really have to be on the lookout on all sections of the front, just because at any time there could be one of these breakthroughs. We saw it in Kharkov, and I'm going to talk about Kharkov right now because we do have some advances up in this area. But this Kharkov operation is not really an offensive. Like I'm not seeing the force commitment that would be required to like reach the city of Kharkov. It seems like they're again moving very slow. It just seems like they kind of walked in, and I almost think they achieved more success than they thought that they were going to achieve. It succeeded in pulling Ukrainian reserves and forcing Ukrainian equipment to be moved. I mean, we've seen a basically a genocide of like air defense pieces and artillery pieces in this Kharkov region. But we have two advances that we'll talk about real fast, and then I'll talk about more about what's happening up here. So the Russians have pushed into this small dacha area along this reservoir. Again, this is an important sort of border. It's the very edge of where the Russians are pushing. There are rumors that the Russians may enter the Kharkov region over here. So far, with what we've seen around the Belgorod region, this looks like they're establishing themselves in this northern Kharkov region to begin to put serious pressure on Kupiansk. It seems like they're again going for this eastern section. I know a lot of people think they want to think big. They want to think like, oh, go for Sumy, oh, go for Kharkov, oh, go for Zaporozhye, do something like that. But the Russians have been very, very clear about how they're going to fight this war, and they're going to continue fighting this war in the exact same way, right? So the goal is the Donbass. Don't forget that this is always the primary goal. This is the primary goal because this is the stated goal of the Russian SMO, right? The Donbass has always been the absolute, like, if you want to talk about like bare minimums of what needs to happen, I could see Russia, if things got really bad for Russia in the war, which I don't see that happening, but if they were, I could see Russia sacrificing, like, the whole meat wave attack thing. I could see Russia seriously sacrificing a lot of men to accomplish capturing Kramatorsk-Sloviansk, the entire Donbass, before they had to cease the war and establish the lines and then you freeze the conflict or whatever. If the war was going horribly for Russia, that's how important the Donbass is. So I just think that when you guys are thinking about where they're going to go next, oh, Sumy, oh, into Kherson region or something like that, it's always a possibility, right? But really, what the Russians want is the Donbass. Once the Donbass falls, the Ukrainian army won't have the same areas to basically hide in and defend from. And once those fortifications are gone and the field opens up, the Russians will be able to outmaneuver and destroy the Ukrainian army that's collapsing. So the Kharkov push so far is east of Kharkov city and is pushing down the Seversky Donetsk River, right? The Seversky Donetsk River is the river that comes all the way down around Izium area and then down through the Shcherbyansky forestry down to Seversk. So this whole front right here is connected. And what the Russians want to do is the Russians want to get the Ukrainians off of this side of the Seversky Donetsk Canal. That's the primary goal. That opens up Izium, that opens up Liman, that puts the Russians back into the position they were in 2022. Don't expect the Russian plan to change. Don't be looking for some Moscow magic or something like that and expect them to go for Kiev or some crazy stuff like that. Don't expect that. Play the odds, everybody. When you're looking at conflicts, what have the Russians done? What did they do previously? Why would they change? Right? That push worked. It was a successful push into the Kharkov region. Yes, the entry into the city did not go as well as the Russians had planned. Obviously, they had their issues with the leadership in this city and how hard the different brigades that were stationed there were fighting them. Unlike Kherson, where they walked in, and unlike some of the other cities like Melitopol, where they just walked in and not necessarily greeted, but peacefully transitioned power from the Ukrainian government to the Russian government. That didn't happen in Kharkov, but this is still the game plan. You can still see where the where the Russians want to go. They want to come down and get Chernihiv. And the best way you can look at this is go look at a previous control map too of like Deep State has it. where it shows the Ukrainians pushed the Russians back, sort of deal. That's where you'll see exactly where the Russians are going to go, and you can basically remap where the Russians were and probably guess that that's where the Russians are going to head. So follow until something over here happens. If something over here happens, then the whole dynamic changes. If there's a small push into the Sumy region like this, I consider this a small push, guys. This did not. It incorporated a lot of artillery. It incorporated a lot of airstrikes and missile strikes. They've done significant damage, but the number of infantry committed to this push was very, very minimal. I mean, we saw maybe 1 4-vehicle pileup, but in terms of the pro-Ukrainian space, information space, hyping up a bunch of like dead Russians and stuff, we haven't really seen much of it, have we? Right? And you think they would be pushing that stuff out as much as they can. I don't think that there's a lot of that for a couple of reasons. I don't think that there is a very target-rich environment here for the Ukrainians in terms of the number of Russians. There are Russians that can be killed in this region, but not, like so many. It's not the same as like the Avdiivka region where they were making a concerted effort to, push out towards this reservoir or into Orchitny, and there were a bunch of Russians exposed. That's not really what's happening up here. The Russians are just kind of pushing in, and then the Ukrainians are getting bullied out with artillery, guided artillery, drones, FPVs, Lancets, glide bombs. They're just getting bullied out of all of these positions. And when they can't sit there anymore because they don't have the air defense coverage, they don't have the artillery support, they don't have proper command structure, they don't have proper fortifications, they're forced to back out. They're backing out of Volvychansk right here. We can see that the Russians have made more progress into Volvychansk. This linchpin gets used a lot. It's not necessarily the linchpin. It doesn't hold the line together, but this is the entry into the first Ukrainian line of defense right here, right? The Russians are already basically on that line of defense. And once you penetrate a line of defense somewhere, the rest of the line is much easier to unravel because it's a directional defense. This is all being done with, what did we say? There's 55,000 troops in the Sumy, Chernigov, Bryansk region, right? So you're talking maybe 30,000 total men are taking part in this operation, and it's not 30,000 infantrymen. It's artillerymen, it's logistics, it's there's probably 15,000 men participating in this, and they're taking this much territory. That's just because the Ukrainians are that much weaker in this area. Now, those numbers are my estimates, guys. I don't know that absolutely. There could be more Russians. I don't know the force disposition, but it seems like the Ukrainians are having a very, very hard time bringing reserves into the area. So this limited Russian advance that was meant to pull reserves is actually succeeding beyond expectations. I think that this is very, very sufficient for what the Russians wanted from the initial phase of this push in. They haven't made any big commitments, and they forced massive Ukrainian rotation. It was a very big deal. Blinkin made a visit. I don't know if that was scheduled because of the Kharkov thing. The timing is very auspicious, but we don't know. In terms of where the Russians may go next, there's a bunch of rumors, and Bundanov of the SUB or SBU, SUB, the sub, is in the Sumy region. He believes the Ukrainians seem to believe that the Russians are going to do probably this exact same thing in the Sumy region. And why not, right? This is a low-cost, high-yield operation on the border. It's exactly what the Ukrainians were trying to do. This right here is exactly what the Ukrainians were trying to do. Yeah, the SOB. This operation right here is exactly. I'm almost guarantee you, if the Ukrainians could have got something like this on the opposite side of the border in these towns, this would have been the largest success. Even if they got pushed out, That right there would have been huge. The Russians are just doing that same thing, but this time it's actually working because the Russians have the means to stay, right? So they come in, they take the territory, which is unacceptable to the Ukrainian regime right now. They have to respond. They send reserves, they send artillery. We've seen 3 Bogdana artillery pieces, multiple Buks destroyed. Just a lot of equipment's coming in and getting destroyed up in this area, and there's not a ton to send. So they're even struggling to find equipment and personnel to send to this region. If the Russians just do that over here in the Sumy region and pull even more troops away, that's going to be, I mean, this is exactly what the Ukrainians tried to do. You know, they tried to go in a few different areas and seize some of these towns and force the Russians to transfer troops from different areas and pull resources to a part of the front that doesn't need to be paid attention to normally. The Russians are just doing that exact opposite thing to the Ukrainians, except it's actually working this time. That's all that's happening right now. In terms of, like I said, in terms of what their goal is, I think that this operation is for this eastern part of the Kharkov region. However, if we do see an entry over here, and if we do get rumors or reports of an increased Russian presence in these regions, then this could become much, much more dangerous for Kiev. And I believe that the Russians, seeing how successful this was, are likely probably going to do the same thing in the Chernigov or Sumy regions. And by the way, another thing, zoom out and take a look at the bigger picture here. When we're talking about Kharkov, right? All of the attention is up here, right? Units are being moved out of Nikolaev, Odessa, Kherson, Zaporozhye, any available units in the east. So when I talk about breakthroughs, guys, if everybody's up here paying attention right here, the best possibility for a breakthrough is going to be somewhere in the south. I've said Pokrovsk is the area where a concerted Russian push would yield probably the most results for the Russian war effort. Potentially in the south, just because not necessarily that there's anything of great strategic importance. I mean, capturing Orikhiv or something like that would be very helpful for the Russians, or Holyapolye, but not so. These aren't grand objectives, but a small Russian push in these areas, because the Ukrainian lines are so weak, could definitely become a possibility. We may also see a Russian effort to cross over the Dnieper again, just like the Ukrainians have been doing in Krinky, except without all of the unnecessary death that comes along with being a Ukrainian in Krinky, trying to avoid that aspect of it. But setting up a bridgehead here. And then again, it doesn't need to be overly successful. It doesn't need to capture a lot. What it needs to do is make headlines and force the Ukrainians to do something to save face. That's the Russians have the Ukrainians bent over a barrel right now. They can go in anywhere they want. They will force reserves that the Ukrainians don't have to be rotated, and then they'll just do something else on the opposite side of the map, and they're going to keep doing it, and it's going to be this aggressive hyper attrition that's just going to wear the Ukrainians out, and it's already happening, and it's going to continue to happen. And like I said, I believe that we are in that collapse phase, and I believe that this visit by Blinkin was an emergency trip to try to stabilize nerves in Kiev. It has nothing to do with the military. They can't change anything. They're doing everything they can on that front. But he came in to do a little political salvage operation. So I would things are going to get very interesting. I said May is going to be a very interesting month. It is currently the 14th, and we've had more than a month's worth of stuff happen already. So there were reports, just information-wise, there are reports that a ATACMS strike has been launched against an airfield in Crimea. We'll see in the coming hours if it was successful or not. We've seen a number of unsuccessful ATACMS strikes recently, so we'll see. We'll see how it comes out. I haven't been on any of my socials lately to see if anything happened. Socials or news feeds or anything. Let's see. If something does happen, though, we will for sure only hear about that and definitely not about anything happening on the battlefield for the next 2 days. We'll get satellite photos. There will be a parade in Kiev because of a strike in Crimea, this, that, and the other. Yeah, so. All right. If you guys have some questions, go ahead and get some questions in. That's all I have to talk about today. If you want to donate somewhere else other than YouTube, there is a Patreon. Oh, by the way, guys, I tried to upload my Patreon video twice today, and it was saying that the format was wrong, and it took like a half hour each time. So I'm gonna go back and see if I can figure out how to post it. That should be up literally as soon as I can do it. I'll try again after this. Those videos on Patreon, if you guys go and donate and sign up as members on Patreon, those videos are going to have all of the combat footage that I can't show, and I'm just going to call it demonetized. That's going to be the name of the series, is going to be demonetized. So that's going to go up on Patreon. That's going to be artillery hits, air defense, like missile strikes, that sort of stuff, just stuff that gets me demonetized on YouTube. So if you guys wanted to support me that way, you can find the link on my YouTube, in my YouTube description for my Patreon. You can also find my Telegram and Twitter there. Possibility of an Odessa attack. Low to none. Not impossible, but it's just overly risky. Why? Why would you do that when you can just go into Kharkov and do way more damage and set yourself up and not make moms mad at you back home? Question. What do you think might happen, change, if anything, after May 21st when Zelensky's term expires? I think that's another reason why Blinkin is possibly there. I think that there are a lot of people that are not happy with Zelensky. I think that I think it's getting to the point where everybody kind of hates each other and everybody knows they're kind of screwed. So I think that we could be looking at attempts to potentially oust Zelensky or call into question his the confidence in him, or his rightful place in that position. Blinken said today that there will be no Ukrainian elections until all Ukrainians can vote in the elections, which makes me think that Ukraine is just going to be stuck with Zelensky for the forever. Because that's never going to happen again the way he is intending it. That means Crimea. That means everything. So I don't know. I do not know. Let's see. In the Duran, they were talking about an apparent lack of minefields and the new front. Oh, that's what I was going to talk about. Thank you, dude. Yeah. So this has been a pretty reoccurring topic, and I was talking about it before the Russians even started this offensive. I said it. I said it a lot, and you guys know that I said this. I say it a lot about the area behind all of the 8-year fortifications. I say it takes a long time to set up like sophisticated, deep fortifications. It takes time and it takes money and it takes a lot of planning and a lot of equipment and a lot of manpower. And you can't do that when the Russians can strike you with glide bombs from 30 kilometers. They have a 30-kilometer range with glide bombs over the border. You can't develop these areas. So the drone coverage, the missile strikes, everything, it was pretty clear that the Ukrainians weren't going to have great defenses. And this goes for everywhere, guys. When they talk about them building defenses behind, they're very, very limited and not up to the task of surviving like large glide bombs and stuff like that, unlike the fortifications in the east, which are very robust. I'll show you guys some of the funny things that sort of happened. Here you can see, let's see, how does that look? Yeah, I'll do this. Here you can see part of the Ukrainian defense fortification. And this is the problem with Ukraine and Eastern Europe and Russia is that there's a lot of corruption, and particularly Ukraine is the most corrupt country in that region. It's horrible. So they had all this money that was being, provided to build these fortifications. This is what money theft looks like right here. The Dragon's Teeth were built, but the crews, the payment that goes to the people to properly lay them out was never given. Nobody checks on it. All they do is just go and dump them on the side of the road. There's your billions of dollars for your defense fortifications. There's Ukraine's future right there because some corrupt dipshit decided to pocket that money and screw over men who are now dying in trenches because that's literally the culture. It's a very difficult thing to get around. Part of the changes that I believe we are seeing to the Russian Ministry of Defense are exactly that. They're putting in a no nonsense. They're putting in a no nonsense technocrat who's going to fix the money situation. And I promise you guys, things are going to get streamlined and just like more cold and deadly, and it's going to get brutal. These changes are not changes that you make for necessarily bad reasons. These are good changes that are coming to the Ministry of Defense for Russia. How's the green chili there? It's pretty awesome, dude. We have the best. It's so good. It's so good. I go back and forth from Dallas to New Mexico, so I'm back and forth sometimes. But uh, the chili is bomb, dude. It's so good. It's good. It's good in Colorado, but you guys don't have as much of the good cooking. Thanks for bringing up Shoigu. That was my earlier question. Yeah, so the whole Shoigu thing, I talked about it last time, but Shoigu had talked about retirement. He didn't really like the Ministry of Defense job. I don't think. I think I had read that a couple times, previous even to the war starting. But he's a good manager, so he was kept in that position. It was somebody that Putin could trust, and now a position has opened up for him to move out of the Ministry of Defense. He gets back into the civilian sector, which is where he is probably better suited. And they brought in somebody who's going to shape up and hopefully weed out some of the corruption. I've been saying this for a while. I don't know if I've ever said this on a live stream, so I'll go ahead and say it now. I do believe that Russia is heading towards sort of a small renaissance in their culture and in the way they see themselves, and how they see potentially their future in the world. For a long time, it's been very gloomy, right? Ever since the collapse of the Soviet Union, and I mean, even in the late years of the Soviet Union, it was still the same. There was a morose in the culture, in the people. I think that that's kind of done because the ideologies of the Soviet Union are past, which I think was hard for a lot of people. And Russia hasn't had the chance since 1991 to actually do anything, right? I mean, the 90s were horrible. Then they had the economic crash in 98. And I mean, and then Putin came in 2000, and he's been trying to turn it around, in my opinion, ever since. But, they've had Georgia, and then they had Syria, and I mean, before Syria, Crimea, and then the sanctions that came after that, and then they had Syria and some stuff associated with that, and now they have the SMO, and they could be in wars just forever, and then they end up collapsing because of economic reasons or whatever. Who knows? But one of my thoughts that I think is what's going to happen is that you're going to see this cultural revolution inside of Russia where they gain back some sort of confidence, and a lot of the stereotypes around the Russian culture, the drinking, all of the negative stereotypes, a lot of them are, I mean, they're already beginning to fade, but I think that they are going to fade from existence, and it's going to be a much better thing for Russia. Um, Same with North Korea, by the way. I know I've said that North Korea is going to be the biggest winner of this entire conflict, and they absolutely are. Because North Korea can now openly trade with Russia and is basically openly trading with China now and not fearing sanction regime against whoever trades with them. So North Korea is now opening up, and the sort of the stereotypes that you heard about some of these places, North Korea is like a 1950s hellhole where everybody's trapped. That was sort of the case because they had a repressive regime and were under crippling sanctions all the time, right? Like those two things are obviously going to make everybody's life not as enjoyable. Now you still have that regime, but the regime doesn't have to be as brutal if everybody has food. If everybody, if a bunch of Russian grain and wheat is coming in and everybody can eat, and you're getting vegetables, potatoes from Luca, you don't have to worry. There's the crackdowns don't have to be as brutal from the government and stuff. So I think overall, the North Korean people and North Korea probably are the biggest winners from the Ukraine war. That's just my take. Hot take. All right. If you guys have some questions, go ahead and get them in, and then I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Hopefully tomorrow we get a little bit more news. I think the Russians are just kind of taking it slow in Volchansk right now up in the north. So let's see. All right. All right, guys. All right. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much. I will be on tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 my time. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Again, go in the link in my description on my YouTube. You can find my Twitter and Telegram there. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I'm glad I got to get on and do a later episode. Take care, be safe, and don't die, please. I want to see you guys back here next time. Goodbye.